Oh, okay. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we kick off our Small Business Series, a collaborative program from the Greater Macon Chamber of Commerce and SCORE Middle Georgia. SCORE is a volunteer service that provides free mentoring and low-cost education to small business owners. As part of their mission to foster vibrant small businesses and communities, and we as a chamber, we're happy to present these important topics to both the chamber members and the business community at large. So I want to welcome our co-host and guest speaker, Matt McKenna of SCORE Middle Georgia. During Matt's presentation, if you have any questions, please use the chat screen. It should be at the bottom of your screen, and ask any questions about the presentation, and we'll monitor it throughout and hopefully be able to answer all the questions at the end. So Matt.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Andrew. I hope you can all hear me here. This is the second of our series on small business topics. And we'd like, if you have any feedback or suggestions or ideas for things that you'd like for us to present, please send those in. Let's see if we can get this presentation up here a little better. Sorry about the fumbling, but I think we're all kind of used to these presentations where it takes a minute to get everything set up. So bear with us for a second there. Yeah. So as Andrew said, our mission is to foster small business communities in Middle Georgia. Andrew said we do mentoring and education. And our vision is that at some point, everybody who wants to be a small business owner has all the resources they need to be successful. So we're going to talk a little bit today about business planning. A lot of people, if you're an existing business owner, you may have been in business for 1, 3, 5, 7 years. You may have had a business plan when you started out. But over time, you kind of say, well, I don't really need one of those. I know what I'm doing. If you're a newer business owner, you may just still be kind of figuring it out. Sometimes you might have a business plan just because you had to. You might have gone to get a loan or have an investor. They say, well, where's your business plan? Like, oh God, I got to write a business plan. So it's feels like more of a task than something valuable. And I think what we want to try to do today is just talk a little bit about, why do you need a plan? What are the key elements of it? What are the resources that you can access if you need help? And then from an agenda standpoint, again, I think one important point is, what's the purpose of a business plan? What are the elements? Basically it boils down to the why, what, who, how, when, and I'll also talk about the how much. So it's really just a series of basic questions. If you can answer those questions, you have a business plan. It might be 2 pages, 1 page, it might be 20 pages, it really depends on how you want to do that. And then we'll talk about, again, getting started and where to go for help. So the first question, people say, well, why do I need a plan? Well, there's been a lot of studies done on small businesses, why they succeed, why they fail. And the number one issue is lack of planning. People don't have a plan. So when they hit a roadblock or they forget to think of something, they don't have a plan, and the whole thing falls apart. You can see the other reasons, but that's the number one reason is lack of planning. In fact, Winston Churchill was a big advocate of planning, but he said, sometimes plans are useless, but the planning process is invaluable. So you might do a plan, it may get out of date, but just the process of going through a plan forces you to think about all the aspects of your business and make sure you really understand what you're doing. So then the question is, okay, why do I need a plan? Well, business is complicated. Even if you're existing business, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's hard to keep in your head customers, marketing, sales, operations, finance, employees. So, unless you're a really smart person like I'm not, I need a plan. I need to look up every day and say, well, what are my objectives? What am I doing? And there are a lot of other reasons too for a plan. Again, even if you're an existing business owner, it helps keep you organized. It helps you communicate to your customers and employees. I think particularly employees, because if you have a handful of employees, if you don't have a clear plan, they don't really know what the business is about. They kind of do what they're told, and that's about it. It also is a good way to track your progress. Make sure you're succeeding and making progress to get your goal. It helps you identify opportunities and issues, things you hadn't thought about. As I said, if you need to get a loan, you got to have a business plan. No smart investor, no bank is going to lend you money if you don't have a business plan. And again, finally, if I'm an established business, why do I need to create or update my business plan? Well, I'll give you one reason. This whole COVID thing has turned everybody sideways. Everybody's trying to figure out, how do I operate in this environment? How do I maintain my core business? And maybe how do I add on some other services or products, frankly, to take advantage of the situation? So I'll just stop there. I don't know, Andrew, if you have any comment. Andrew's a very successful small business owner. If you have any comments on the need to actually have a plan.
Yeah, you said, if no plan when you hit a road, when problems arise, but the inverse is even when there's not a problem, the plan directs where your money, your energy, your time goes towards. And if it's going in the wrong direction, then you're losing profits, you're losing opportunities. So knowing where to put energy and resources is very important.
So people have a perception of the business plan is this big, thick stack of paper with all kind of charts and graphs, and it's like, yeah, it's too much trouble. I don't want to fool with that. And even for even if you go to a bank for a loan, they don't need that much stuff. They need some basic stuff. Maybe there's some appendix material, with some financials in it, but it's really not that complicated. If you look at a typical business plan, this is an outline that we use at SCORE a lot. It really just kind of talks about a handful of things. So, but even when people look at that, they're like, oh man, that's a lot of work. Look at all those things I got to figure out. And then it gets even worse when you go into get the templates out. So there's a lot of templates online, including the SCORE template, but you've got all these different worksheets and plan pieces and charts and stuff. So it looks pretty intimidating. So a lot of people kind of don't even start, or they kind of give up, or they think they have a plan, but they really don't have it all covered. Again, you have to remember there's lots of different dimensions of this thing. And so somehow you've got to keep all those things in mind. So I think as we think about planning, it's really pretty simple. If you can answer a few questions about what, why, who, how much, and when, you've got a business plan. So as you think about this, it's almost as if somebody's sitting across the table from you, asking you a series of questions about your business, and you answering those questions. And if you write the answer to those questions down, you have a business plan. Now you may need to do some more work, get some more detail, but that's the basic gist of a business plan. I think the key question is, what is your business? People talk about its mission. Our mission is to foster vibrant small business communities through mentoring and education. That's SCORE's mission. A lot of mission statements are, one-page, one-liners that are also used as a marketing tagline. But you really have to answer that what. What is your business about? What's its mission? And then what products and services are you providing to help fulfill that mission? And I think finally, the thing that people don't often think about is what is the benefit to your customer? A lot of times we like to talk about the features of our business. We got this really cool product. Andrew makes great furniture. It's really cool furniture. But what is the pain you're relieving, or what gain are you creating? So you think about any product you buy, you go buy a bottle of Advil. Well, why are you buying a bottle of Advil? You're relieving some pain. You buy something, a computer, to make you more productive. That's going to give you a gain. So I think one of the important things is really focus less on what are the features of your product or service. I got this really cool product. It's like, what's in it for the customer? Are you relieving some kind of pain? Are you creating some kind of gain? Pain, gain. In the consulting world where I was, we used to call it fear and greed. So you're selling a consulting project to a company either because they're scared of something or they're greedy and they want to make more money. It's pretty simple. Pain or gain, fear and greed. That's what motivates people. The other really important thing is the why. Why should people buy your product or service? And why should people buy from you? A lot of people say, "Oh, I've got this hair product idea. I'm going to come up with these hair products, and they're going to be really great, and I'm going to sell them on the internet, and everybody's going to love them." So, why should they buy yours? If you go on the internet, there are hundreds of hair product sites out there on Etsy and Shopify and all those places. Why should they buy yours? What is unique and distinctive about your product or your service that makes it stand out? And the other thing is, why should people buy from you? Even if you've been in business for a while, you've established business and people say, well, I know, I've heard of them, et cetera. People are still these days going to go look for the reviews. That's huge. So you need to have some kind of clear referral network, some reviews, but it's Yelp or Google or whatever, because people will be looking for those things. If you think, well, I'm really good, but you don't explain to people why you're good and why they should trust you, then you don't really have a story. So again, first key question is, second key question, first was what, second is why. Pretty straightforward stuff, right? And then, who is your ideal customer? People say, hey, I've got this idea. I'm going to start a executive chef business. I'm going to come to your house and cook meals for you. Well, who is your ideal customer? So in that case, it might be, a couple. They're both working. They're both professionals. They have a decent amount of money. They both come home, late, and they don't want to fool with cooking. So you start to visualize who are those people. And then from a marketing perspective, you can start to talk about who are your segments. So and there's a lot of research and work done on this, but basically a customer segment is just saying, how do you articulate and describe who your customers are? So it might be, hey, I'm going for the people like me that are retired and over a certain age who have certain interests. Or it may be I'm going after a 30-ish male audience because I've got this kind of service that they'll like. Or it might be occupation. I've got this really cool software app that helps lawyers do networking. And then if you're selling to businesses, you have the same issue. It's like, what kind of industries I'm going to focus on? Do I go after big business or small business? Do I go to early stage business, et cetera? So when you talk about the who, again, it's a pretty simple concept, but it gets a little more complicated when you have to start articulating this out. The other thing that's interesting these days is these things change a lot. So when you look at the interest, you might have one person, think about yourself, one day you're interested in X, the next day you're interested in Y. So just because I'm interested in one thing one day and another thing the other day, I may be a good customer one day and not a good customer on a different day. So I think you really have to think about who is your ideal customer, what do they look like, what are their characteristics, and then next question is how are you going to reach them? Now, the other thing that we run into a lot when people talk about their business plan is people say, well, I ain't got no competition. Nobody else does what I do. It's really unique. Andrew's furniture is very unique. He makes it from recycled wood. He takes out old houses and buildings. That sounds pretty unique. But in fact, no matter what you got, you're competing with somebody because you're competing for their share of wallet. So the biggest mistake you'd make is say, hey, I don't have any competition. you really need to figure out who your competition is and be able to articulate why are you different, better, unique compared to those people. And so a lot of people say, yeah, well, I'm in the plumbing business for 20 years. I've got somebody down the road who's a plumber, but they're not very good, so I don't worry about them. But you really need to articulate to yourself and to your employees, hey, they could get better. So we need to be on our toes with service, et cetera, in order for those guys not to catch up to us. So really knowing your competition is pretty important. And one way to do that is to really sit down, do an honest assessment of how you stack up. Sometimes this is hard for you to do. You may want to actually have your employees or customers help you. Say, hey, I know you've done business with me. Let's say I'm a web builder, I build websites. Ask your customers, hey, have you worked with other people? What did you like about them? What you didn't like? And how do I stack up? So if you don't really have a very honest understanding of where you stand versus your competition, you're really kind of fooling yourself a little bit. So I don't know, Andrew, if you have any comments. I know you're in a bit of a unique business, but I'm sure people still shop with you, but they also look at for other places. How would you kind of think about how you compete?
Well, I mean, there's businesses that directly do exactly what we do. So there's a business in Athens that sells reclaimed furniture that does pretty well, but we compete against furniture. So, they're going to buy tables, but then also we compete against the family budget. So if they're going to do a home renovation and buy new furniture versus go on vacation. And so, plane tickets versus tables is, what we're competing against. So the competing against the wallet's a good point. Also, I think the competitors, I think that's a really good point about studying them, because there's a lot of businesses that come to mind where people were actually previously customers of something and they're so dissatisfied with the business, and that, they already understand what, as a customer, what they're looking for is, and then they go out and build a better widget. So knowing who your competitors are, even if you aren't a customer, finding previous customers, finding everything about that will give you a leg up.
The other key question is how. How are you going to market your business? And just as a preview, October is going to be marketing month. We've got a couple of sessions lined up with some great experts. Robert Grant and Matthew Michael will be with us in October for a couple of sessions on marketing. So stay tuned to those. They'll get more into social media marketing, marketing strategies, and all those things. But that's one of the most important things to think about. I think one of the things that we see with a lot of small businesses is everybody thinks marketing equals social media. And we would say, first of all, you have to step back and think about a marketing plan or marketing strategy, and then see where social media fits into that. I was talking to a person the other day who has a sign business. He makes signs for retail. He says, one of the biggest issues is people don't understand how physical signage fits into their marketing program. They say, hey, I need a sign, let people know I'm here, but does it have a logo on it? Does it have a graphic? So there's all kinds of different marketing channels to reach customers. Social media is a very important one, but it's not the only one. Word of mouth, in fact, for a service business is probably one of the most important marketing channels you have. And you can use social media to amplify that, but that's really again, a piece, an element of a broader marketing platform. So the marketing is pretty important. And the other is, how are you going to deliver? If you're going to be selling a product, are you going to make that product yourself? Are you going to, use a Chinese supplier? How's that going to work? On Monday morning, are you going to have a website where people can order product and you're going to ship it out yourself? Are you going to use Amazon fulfillment services? If you're a service business, who's going to answer the phone? somebody wants you to come out and do something at home. How's that going to work? Are they going to call your cell phone? Do you have an office? Do you hire a part-time assistant? So just really thinking through, how are you going to produce your product, deliver your service? How is that going to work? So again, pretty basic. 2 questions with a how. How are you going to reach your customers, and how are you going to service them? Pretty simple. So now we've talked about the what, we talked about the why, we talked about the who, we talked about the how. Now we start getting into the interesting question, which is how much? How much is your product or service going to cost? So Andrew, I think this is interesting for, like in your business, you have a kind of a unique product. So trying to figure out how to price a product in your environment is kind of tricky. So I don't know if you want to comment a little bit about kind of how you went around thinking about how do you actually set a price on your product?
I look at competitors first and try to find a baseline and just a trial and error. So we don't do large volumes. So setting the price too low isn't a big issue. And rather than selling 1,000, different little pieces and losing money. So we'll start here, and then we just slowly see if we can work it up, and then we kind of find where the right price is. Yeah. But we have competitors that we try to price against, and so it's an ongoing issue.
Yeah, I think any small business, when you're in business for a while, you kind of have a standard price list. If you're have a mechanic shop, you probably have a shop rate that's say $97 an hour or something. But a lot of people kind of set those and they never go back and look at them again. And so you might say, well, I'm going to raise my prices 2% a year because I have to pay my employees 2% more. But that's a cost plus model as opposed to competitive market back model. So pricing is really a tricky thing. It's like Andrew said, if you price too low, you might get a lot of requests, and then you're overwhelmed, you can't fill it, and you may not make money. Or if you price too high, you sit around and twiddle your thumbs all day because you don't have any customers. So pricing is probably one of those almost more of an art than a science. You have a lot of resources out there to help you figure that out. But yeah, the competitive benchmarks is probably one of the critical things. Going back to knowing your competitor is pretty important.
Well, it's not something that you just let go, because then what's going to happen is 3-4 years later, your suppliers' prices are going to go up, and you realize, oh crap, I'm not making as much money as I used to. Yeah. And then you're going to jack up the prices, and then your customers are going to be outraged because your $5 latte is now $8 or something like that. So what you have to do is be pretty vigilant on it. And some of it is a little bit of price increases on everything every 6 to 12 months. Or sometimes it's just a certain product or service that you increase the price sporadically. But it's something that if you just let go for 5 years, you're going to have to make a large adjustment, and your customers will notice. They'll notice when you make any price change, but when you make large price changes, then they kind of feel ripped off for sure.
Yeah, one of the things that a lot of companies will do is they'll unbundle their pricing. Kind of your point, Andrew, if you're making a product, for example, that has steel in it, steel prices fluctuate pretty widely over the years, even sometimes month to month. So a lot of companies will say, okay, look, we're going to charge you X for doing the work, but we're going to charge you whatever the going rate for steel is, and be very transparent about it. That steel is a good example because there are lots of public indices, so you can show your customers, hey, we're not ripping you off. It's just this price of steel has gone up, and so we haven't really changed our value added. We're still making the product. We're charging you X money to make the product, but let's be very transparent and explain why our prices are going up or down. And so customers kind of understand if you're in that business, but if you, like to Andrew's point, if you jerk the customers around by raising prices a lot, suddenly they get, what happened? So you really have to stay on top of that. To Andrew's point, a lot like in labor, there tends to be a creep. Every year you have to pay your employees 1 or 2% more, and if you don't adjust your pricing, pretty soon you've got a big gap you've got to catch up to.
Well, but if you keep presenting value to the customer, it shouldn't be a problem. And so as long as you're presenting great value for your service or product, then your customers will feel justified. They might even feel like, well, I'd still would pay even more for this person, for this thing. And so it's, as long as you're presenting value. So if you have bad reviews and you're not doing well, that's not a good time to price increase for sure. You definitely want to make sure that you're hitting all your marks for quality and customer satisfaction.
I think the last question on how much is, how much you're going to make. And one of the big issues here is people tend to underestimate how much cash it takes to really run the business. And so you really do have to have a pretty robust budget. Again, even if you've been in business for a while, you can constantly look at your expenses and you anticipate what those future expenses might be. One of particularly if you have employees, there's always a big shock, particularly if you're offering any kind of benefits to employees. Healthcare costs, as we all know, are going through the roof. You might have an issue with workers' comp. So you have to keep looking at your expenses, and you have to keeping an eye out for what those next things might be. Your insurance premiums might be going up, and so or you might hit an issue, a road bump like the COVID thing. So you need that rainy day fund. You really need to think about how much money do I really need to keep in the bank to keep my business running in case something happens. Obviously, this is a pretty unusual situation, but even a normal course of business, you can imagine a business where we have, storms or other issues that shutting your business down for a while. Somehow you got to get through that. One of the reasons a lot of small businesses fail is they don't have enough cash in the bank to get through those road bumps, and so they just run out, or they don't anticipate some big expense. So really thinking about what are all the costs of my business? What do they look like over the past? How are they tracking? And then what might happen to those costs in the future? And then to Andrew's earlier point, that will help inform my pricing strategy. Hey, it looks like labor's getting tight. I'm gonna have to start paying another $1 an hour to keep people. So how does that flow through into my pricing, and how I'm going to do that? And finally, how much you're going to make. We work with some small business owners, and some of them actually at the end of the day, when they start working through all this, say, well, shoot, I can make more money working for somebody else. And you say, well, maybe that's the right answer, unless you're really passionate about it. A lot of small business owners don't value their own time. And in fact, they don't pay themselves. And that may be okay for a while, but if you want to sustain your lifestyle, your family, at some point you need to get paid. And if your business is paying you a lot less than what you can make working for somebody else, you really do have to have an honest conversation with yourself about, am I better served not having this business and going to work for somebody else? Or maybe I just do this business part-time. We had a SCORE client who was a very experienced mechanic who was thinking about dropping that and starting his own business from scratch. So we had a conversation about, hey, there's a way to transition that. Mechanics are in short supply. Maybe you could work on a deal where you could work part-time, still as a mechanic and make some money, get your business up and running. Or maybe there's a steady state where you do that part-time, you do your business part-time. But at the end of the day, you've got to pay yourself a fair wage in order to maintain yourself and your family. So don't kid yourself by not paying yourself forever. Think you're making money unless you're really passionate about it and you can afford to do that. The other thing that key question that we talk about a lot is when. So you might lay out a plan that says, okay, I'm going to go after these customers. So I'm going to go after these people in Macon and these people in Warner Robins and these people in Atlanta. but the question is when. Anytime you have a plan, there ought to be some sense of timing and plan, so you can lay things out and do it. One of the challenges I think all of us have, and I'm sure Andrew has this, is every morning there's 14 things to be done. And you can't do 14 things all at once. So you have to have a plan that says, okay, next month, I'm going to focus on revamping my website. That's my plan. The month after that, I'm going to focus on getting a marketing program going on in the Atlanta market, et cetera, et cetera. And it might only be a one page, it might just be a list of, hey, for the next 3, 6, 9 months, here are my key milestones. Here's what we're going to be doing every month. And that gives you a way to wake up on Monday morning and say, what am I working on this week? Now you have a plan. You can look at your plan and say, oh, okay, this month I'm focused on marketing for Atlanta, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this stuff. One of the concepts that has been going around in business circles for years is the idea of a WIG, a wildly important goal. So if you have 6 different things you're trying to accomplish around customers and profitability, et cetera, one or two things for this time period I'm going to focus 80% of my attention on and kind of just keep the other stuff moving along. So for example, I'll give you an example. SCORE is a volunteer organization. We're short on volunteers. Our big goal, our wildly important goal for this year is to go recruit more volunteers. And yes, we have to market, we have to take care of our clients, we have to do some fundraising, all that stuff's important, but that's kind of our goal. So if you think about your plan and the when and when you're going to do what, you really have to prioritize that around what are the really important things I want to work on for this time period. And that time period might be this week, might be today, it might be this month, it might be this year. But if you don't put some time dimensions around it, things tend to run together, muddle around. You get to the end of the day, end of the week, end of the month, end of the year, and you're like, well, I didn't get much done. So timing is very important. And the timing of your plan ought to also feed in to your whole financial forecast. So it sounds complicated, but you can get all this on one page. It might be a big page, but if you think about all the things we've talked about, it's pretty simple. It's like, what's your mission? What business are you in? And given that thought process, that drives, well, if that's the business I'm in, here's the products and services I need to offer to be in that business. And then what's my value proposition? Okay, for those products and services, am I providing people some kind of gain or am I relieving their pain? What exactly is the value to my customers? Again, don't focus so much on the features of your products. Hey, I got this really cool product. Focus more on the benefit to the customer, pain versus gain. And once you figure that out, that should tie right into, okay, here's the target customer I'm going after. Hair products for women of a certain demographic, or hey, I'm going to be doing plumbing services for commercial clients or residential or whatever. Or I'm going to be a mechanic, but I'm going to focus on trucks, long haul trucks, for example. And so, who are those customers you're going to go after? And then, why should they buy from you? Again, you need some level of personal and business credibility in the small business world. If you're Amazon, everybody knows Amazon. If you're a small business owner, they may or may not know you, your company, your history. So you've got to have a good reason why they're going to do business with you. And then we talked about how are you going to reach those people? What kind of marketing channels? How are you going to service them? How are you going to sell and service to them? How much you're going to charge? How much revenue can you get out of them? How much is it going to cost? And when is what going to happen? So if you just answer all these questions, again, pretty simple, one page, write down the answer to these questions, you have a business plan. Now, if you go in for a loan, they're probably going to want a little bit more. But really, business planning is a lot simpler than a lot of people think. It's not about writing a 30-page dissertation. It's about being able to really crisply answer a set of questions and then step back and say, does this all fit together? Does this all work together?
So Matt, you're saying that the business plan is more beneficial to the business owner than to the banks or anybody else, that the business owner should use it first and foremost, correct?
Absolutely. I think that's a great point, Andrew, because like I said, I'm sure there's super smart people out there that can keep 10 things in their head all at once. But many of us are not quite like that. So even like this one-page business plan, put it up on your wall, keep it on your desk, keep it in your iPad, and then, look at it at least once a week, once a month, say, hey, am I still tracking? Is there anything I need to tweak here? Because again, without some kind of a plan, you really don't, Yogi Berra had a saying, he said, if you don't know where you're going, you'll wind up someplace else. Not sure what that means, but the point is, if you don't have a plan, my high school football coach used to say, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. In other words, you can wander around all day, but if you have a plan, it's not going to get you where you want to go. So I agree with you, Andrew. And I think the other important thing, particularly in a small business, is communicating to your customers, to your employees as well. Because you might have a handful of employees, even if they've been around a long time. Hey, they show up to work, they get paid, they go home. But if they don't really understand most of your plan, they can't be helpful. They can't say, hey, hey, boss, I was talking to a customer the other day. They don't really understand, why our prices are going up. And so, they don't really understand that stuff. So I think it's an important tool for the owner. It's an important tool for your key employees. And parts of it are really important for your customers too, to explain who you are, what kind of business you're in, why they should buy from you. And I think, Andrew, you know a lot of small business owners. A lot of times people buy from a small business because of the owner. They know the owner. I'm going to use this electrician because I know the owner. He's a really nice guy. And he may cost a little more, about the same as other electricians, but hey, I really trust that person to come over and do my work. And then it's not that hard. You can use a whiteboard, you can use pieces of paper, but laying all this stuff out is really not that big of a deal. I think as we kind of move into Q&A, just a couple of final thoughts on this. What if things don't go to plan? And they won't. Something's going to happen that wasn't your plan. You can't think of everything, but you ought to at least think about a few scenarios of what might happen and what you might do in that case. Your competitor gets aggressive on pricing. Nobody, I don't think, could anticipate a pandemic, so that's a little more difficult to plan for. But you have to think through what are some of the logical scenarios. You lose a key employee, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say there's usually 3 to 5 key scenarios you need to think about, and think about what would I change in my plan, what would I do differently in order to deal with those situations. And then there's 5 ways to make your plan ineffective. We at SCORE work with a lot of people looking at business plans or helping them review those plans. And these are the 5 things. I won't read them all, but I think a couple of ones, your assumptions about your product. People assume just because I've got this cool product or service, it's really cool, people will buy it. Now you really have to test the market, talk to people, and understand, are people going to buy it? What are they going to pay for it? The other big one is this thing, hey, we have no competition. Everybody has competition. People have a limited amount of money. No matter what business you're in, you're competing with somebody. Even a free business like SCORE, we offer free services. We're still competing for people's time. Do they want to take an hour and spend that with a SCORE mentor, or do they want to work on their business? So again, those are some of the key things that we see that really are hurtful. There's a lot of resources out there. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but you can look at sample business plans online. You can look at the SCORE website. We have some templates. The SBA has some programs and things that are helpful. Ton of resources out there when you actually want to get down and work on this. But I think it all goes back to those key questions of what business you're in, what are your products and services, why should people buy those products and services from you, who are your target customers, how are you going to price your product, how are you going to reach those customers, how are you going to run your business, how much money do you need to run the business, how much money you think you're going to make, and when are you going to do what. It's pretty simple.
Well, our chat screen is open. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and fire them away. Matt, I've got a question for you. Let's say I'm starting a business and into something completely different, or I've never run a business, so I've never even sold a service or product before. So how would you find out, what would you say to me, if I say, I don't know who my customers are, I think I know who would want this, but what would you say to me how would I find out my customers?
Well, I think there's a few ways. One is talk to your friends and family. You need to go find people that would be your potential customers and talk to them. Sometimes, if you're trying to sell, say, to some upscale professionals, use your network to get to know find somebody that'll talk to you. Most people are pretty open to small business. Fortunately, here in Middle Georgia, Macon-Bibb, I think we have a pretty good community appreciation for small businesses. So you need to go talk to people. The other, another way to do this is give away samples. If you've got some really cool T-shirt designs and you're trying to see if people like them, give away some free samples. And if nobody takes your free samples, that's probably a good indication they're not going to pay money for your T-shirt. So there's, one is you need to go find your target customer, talk to them. Another is to give away free samples. Another technique is to actually use some social media. You may have to actually pay people to take a survey and say, hey, fill out this survey, enter a chance to win $500 or something like that. The other thing is there are a lot of good resources if you want to do a little more analytical work. For example, the Washington Library here in Macon, we have the Business and Nonprofit Center. They have a tool called Reference USA, which is a database they subscribe to. You can access through the library system, but it has a lot of information on consumer behavior. So for example, you can go into a given zip code and say, well, how many people in this zip code are dog lovers? And you can figure out, which zip codes in the Middle Georgia have got the most dog lovers. And so you might say, okay, well, let me target that zip code first for my dog walking service and put it out there and see if you get any response. And so sometimes you have to give stuff away. You have to leverage your network. You have to just take a shot at some things. If you're still got a full-time job, you might have to do some things on the weekend. Before COVID, we would say go to trade fairs. If you're trying to sell to people that like to do quilting, go to a quilting trade show. Set up a booth, talk to people. So the more personal feedback you can get, the better. And again, you have to pull all those angles in order to pursue all those angles to begin to get some feedback on, hey, does my idea really make sense? Is anybody going to buy this thing? Is my customer who I really think it is? And how much I think I can pay a charge for this thing? Right.
Yeah. I mean, giving away services or products, but even services, that's a really good idea. Because, if your service would charge $50 to mow the grass, but it only costs you $20 a time and $3 of gas, it's $23 of marketing. Essentially is what you're spending on. Mm-hmm. And you could tell the customers, hey, look, I'll give you this service for free. If you like it, keep me on. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I think even in, for example, if you're trying to start a web business where you do web-based stuff or social media stuff, again, you may have to give away some things, get some people to then refer you. Say, okay, hey, I'll give you a discount. First 10 customers. Hey, I'm trying to get in the web building business. First 10 customers, 50% discount. And the only hook is at the end of this, I really need you just to give me an honest review. I'm not going to tell you what to say, but let's get a good review. So as most of us know these days, when we're shopping for a lot of things, we're going to look for reviews. And people can kind of sniff and smell, hey, if that review sounds like it was written by the owner and stuck in somebody else's name, or their sister-in-law wrote that review. So people can kind of sniff out what a real review is versus somebody who's kind of sticking stuff out there. I think some of us have seen those in restaurants where you see this review about a restaurant. It's like, oh, great food, great service, blah, blah, blah. And you go there and you say, oh, it's okay. So, there's some dissonance there between what the reviewer's saying and the reality. And so I think finding a way to get those people that are going to be what they call raving fans, or at least friendly fans about your business, pretty important.
Well, Matt, the other thing I couldn't help but notice was in your presentation, you had a lot of different points, but really only one of you had about 10 different points that you had questions you had to answer, but only one of them was how you're going to run your business, which is really what people focus on. It's been, how am I going to run the business? I got to hire people. I got to get a building. I got to get a truck, all these different, get a name. But I mean, the way you laid it out, you really said that's only 10% of your planning. I mean, is that for as far as a priority? I mean, does that sound about right in the planning process, that it's really only worth the 10%, and the other stuff is 90% the bulk of the work that needs to get done?
Yeah, I think it changes over time, and also depends on the business a little bit. So it may take you, 10 minutes to answer the question of how much money do I need, because it's pretty basic. I got rent, et cetera. It might take you 3 days to really sketch out, okay, here's how my business is going to work. Like your business, you got a very organized, 3 departments. You do it this way, but that probably didn't pop out. It wasn't like a 5-minute, hey, here's how I'm going to do it. Hey, let's sit down and figure this out. We got to order, we got to get material, we got to stage it, we got to age it, we got to prep it. So in relative to your overall plan, though, I would say, to your point, people kind of get probably too wrapped around the day-to-day, and they don't step back and think about all those things and how important they are. So doing financial projections, it may take longer than some other things. So they may take different time, but I think your point from an importance standpoint, they're all pretty equally important.
Right. Yeah, that's, I would say I was to blame for the same thing as, focus on the what, not really all these other elements. So what about an existing business? What do you advise people to, so you're saying that we should all have plans, no matter how big we are. I mean, how often should we be updating our own business plan, where we're really sitting down and looking at it and making adjustments? Is it a 5-year plan that we adjust annually? Is it a 1-year plan we adjust monthly? What do you normally say?
Yeah, it depends on your business stage. If you're a mature business, you've been in business for a while, it's probably a once a year. Once a year, I'm going to think about maybe a 3-year plan. 5 years, maybe if you're really thinking about, some significant growth, but frankly, it's hard for anybody to predict 5 years out. And so practically speaking, it's kind of, at the end of 1 year, it's kind of easier to think about the next year and the next year and the next year. Then it starts getting really fuzzy. So for example, you might be in a small business, you're a mature business, you're thinking about bringing in a partner to take it over and buy you out. So you might need a 5-year plan to think about how's that going to look over the next 5 years. But if you're a mature business, you're just running pretty well, you want to grow a little bit, probably once a year, a 3-year plan makes a lot of sense. And in that case, big companies, they'll take their executives off once a year for these 3-day retreats with the board and all that stuff. Even a small business owner, you almost have to schedule your own retreat. You have to say, look, I'm going to take this one day. It might be a Saturday. And all I'm going to do this one day, either by myself or maybe with some key employees, is talk about the business. Let's think about the business. If you're a startup, a newer business, if you're a startup, you almost need to think about your plan every week, every month.
Mm.
You know, hey, I was going to go in this way. Is it working? Is it not working? If you're a newer business, kind of that 1 year mark, you may only have an 18-month ahead plan because, you know, you really don't know what your growth rate is going to look like. You're really not sure about your customer base. So the thing that people fool themselves, even big companies will create these 10-year plans and they think they've got everything figured out, but who the heck knows what's going to happen in 10 years. So I guess our advice would be, if you're a mature business, at least once a year, force yourself to think about the next 3 years. If you're a brand new startup, once a month, dust it off. If you're kind of in the middle, you know, I've been in business a couple of years, then probably every 6 months or so, it's worth thinking about the next 18 months.
That's good advice. Well, we don't have any other questions unless I'm just not seeing them. Matt, I think we'll call it for today unless you have anything else you want to add.
Just thank you all for tuning in. We will have a recording of this posted. So if you have friends or folks who didn't get to it, they can see this later. You know, you can go to our website, middlegeorgia.score.org. If you're looking for resources, information, you know, check in with us, let us know. If you're looking for business partners, I would make sure if you're not a chamber member already, you really ought to check that out. And on top of that, if you're looking for services, then you ought to check out the chamber folks as well. Just like to thank the Greater Macon Chamber of Commerce for hosting us and doing all they're doing for the community and small businesses.
Yeah, so the recording of this will be on maconchamber.com, as well as I think it's going to be on social media. And then Matt, your presentation, a lot of people were asking about it, with all the links to it, will also be under the same link. So go to maconchamber.com, give the staff a few hours to get it uploaded, but it should be there this afternoon, I believe. So, and then when's our next presentation? It's in 2 weeks.
In October, you know, I forgot the date actually. I think it's middle of October. We'll be getting that out. It's on marketing. Robert Grant, we're talking about marketing. And then the end of October, we'll have Matthew Michael from M&R Marketing, who will follow up with some more things about how to leverage your website and social media. So stay tuned to this, to the Chamber website, SCORE website. You can get on our mailing list. We'll send these notes out. So let us know, and we'll keep you posted.
Yeah, October 14th at 10 a.m. will be Robert Grant, and then Matthew Michael will be October 28th. But it's every 2 weeks is the cadence of it. All right. Well, then I believe that's a wrap. So, Kathy, I think if you want to go ahead and end it, but thank you so much for attending.